dramas and playground scenes. Maybe you don't care who's gonna lose or win. Listen to this and I'll tell you something. It's a horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie and there's load of views. Horror movie, it's a 6:30 news. Horror movie, it's a 6:30 news. The public's waiting for the camera and the hate. Switch on the station, oh yeah. They do it down and celebrate the fire and the yelling. You believe in what they're telling, oh yeah. It's a horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie and there's load of views. Horror movie, it's a 6:30 news. Horror movie, it's a 6:30 news. And it sharpens me right out of my brain.
Welcome to podcast number 6 of the Zaius Report, talking cult movies. With me, Warren. Yes, Warren of Zaius. What should I say? Maybe it should be Sir Warren of Zaius. That sounds even cooler. I could come up with some sort of coat of arms, maybe with Dr. Zaius standing on top of a half-buried Statue of Liberty, with the words underneath, "You blew it all to hell." I don't know, interesting. Anyway, something to think about. But anyway, welcome and thank you for tuning in to podcast number 6. Got some great movies to talk about this week. And you may have noticed that a slightly different intro this week. And there is a very good reason for that, because of one of the movies that I will be talking about very shortly. So I'm not going to give it away just yet. We'll wait till we get to the movie and I shall explain why. Now, the other thing too, during the week, still been getting requests for movies. So for everyone that's sending them in, I really do thank you, and it's all been taken on board, and I will be speaking about them. In fact, a couple of them I already have. So, thank you. Please keep them coming in. Now, there was one request from somebody, I won't name them, but who suggested a bit of a change to the show, and that was to announce about a week before what the films were that were going to be discussed, and then do full-on reviews, even going through the ending, so people could watch them beforehand and then listen in afterwards. Well, look, it's a great idea, but it's a little bit awkward, because the simple fact is that a lot of people won't have seen these movies, won't have had time to see these movies. Maybe, they'll go and watch one of these movies 3 weeks later. So I don't really want to give the endings away. But it's a good idea, and I do think that I will do a few one-off specials where I will actually do that. Maybe get a special guest, a friend in to co-podcast, and talk about some films, discuss them in a bit more depth than I normally do, and of course the endings will obviously be given away. But I think those podcasts will be sort of specials. They won't be the normal podcast. But anyway, it's all stuff that I'm thinking about. But look, enough of all of that. Let's talk some movies. So, one moment. I'll be right back with movie number 1 of podcast number 6. Now, our first movie, this is an interesting one. It's called Julia X from 2011. And when I first saw this, I really wasn't too sure what to expect. But it goes down a very interesting path. It's directed by PJ Batiet, stars Valerie Azalin, Kevin Sorbo, and Alicia Lee Willis. Now, Kevin Sorbo, of course, that's a name that I think most people are going to recognise from, of course, Hercules and many other TV shows and movies. But his role in this is very interesting. So how shall I start with this? I suppose, consider this. What would happen if a serial killer used the internet to find a prey, to go on a date with that prey, because they obviously don't know that the person they're going on a date with is a serial killer, but the person that they organise the date with is themselves a serial killer? It's a very interesting idea, and this is exactly what this movie plays with. Now, our main star, Julia, played by Valerie, it starts off basically in a coffee shop in the United States, and she's on an internet date with Kevin Sorbo, and they're all talking and all the rest of it, and she gets a phone call and she has to basically leave the date a little bit early. But they seem to be getting along really well, so it's all pretty normal at this stage, until she tries to go back to her car, where she basically then is abducted by Kevin Sorbo. And so we think at this stage that, okay, here we go, she's been captured, she's been chained up in his dungeon, and getting ready for him to do all his serial killer horrible stuff to our other star, Julia. And you might think that's where this movie is going to go, but it doesn't, because of course Julia has a big surprise in store. Now, she manages to escape and run off from his hideout. He chases after her, and the tables are then turned, and Julia manages to then capture Kevin, the character played by Kevin Sorbo, and now he is her prisoner, and we learn that, of course, she herself is a serial killer, and he was her target. She then takes him back to her house, where we meet her sister, and it turns out that these two women, as young children, were sexually abused and so forth by their father, who was also a wife abuser, a real charming character, clearly, but it has scarred them deeply and, of course, turned them into abusive people themselves and serial killers. Now, while he's captured in the house, the two of them play games with him. Often he escapes, tries to kill them. They lock him back up. Then they try to kill him. And it just goes from one extreme to the other, where they're each trying to kill each other. And it's almost like some sort of morbid ballet in regards to who actually has the upper hand, through the hour and a half of this movie. And we never really know until the very end who is actually going to, I suppose, win and kill the other. Now, the ending of this movie is different. It wasn't what I expected. Won't give it away, of course, but it really wasn't what I was expecting to happen. So that's actually quite nice to get a little bit of a twist at the end. And the other thing too is that our two main stars seem to almost have this sort of romantic attachment to each other in their continual assaults and batteries, and because this gets quite bloody as the movie goes on, but through all of this violence that they're showing to each other, they're getting quite, in a sense, turned on. They actually are starting to appreciate each other, almost falling in love with each other as the night progresses. It's quite a fascinating little movie. It's not a great one to go out and say, yeah, I'll spend big money on it. If you find it on Netflix, watch it, but I wouldn't seriously recommend going out and spending any money on it. It's an interesting story that could have been taken so much further, but of course, being a B movie, there's only so much money, that can be spent on this movie, and of course, also the script shows that as well. It really doesn't go as far as it could. I suppose the problem, though, if it did, it would then become a very, very serious movie, and that would defeat the whole purpose of it being a B movie, I suppose. But it's worth checking out. Julia X from 2011. If you want to see some really weird, violent romance, serial killer insanity, where the upper hand keeps changing every 5 minutes, then give this one a try. Now, last podcast we finished with a movie called Battle of the Amazons. And as I said then, you've got to love a good gladiator movie and you've got to love a good Amazon movie. But what about, just imagine if we could combine the two. Well, in 2001, a director, Zachary Weintraub, did exactly that with Amazons versus Gladiators. And this is an absolute gem. Now, it stars Patrick Bergin, Nicole Hitz, Jennifer Rubin, Richard Norton, and Melanie Guttridge. And it's set around just after, just before the birth of, if you believe all that, just before the birth of Christ. So around about maybe 51 BC, somewhere like that. And it actually starts with a real person, which was Crassus. Now, if you know anything about Roman history, you will know that, of course, Crassus was a general and politician who was the one who ended the Spartacus slave rebellion in 71 BC. And he's actually played by Patrick Bergin in this movie, but with the exception of the fact that he's called Crassus, and he talks about the fact that he killed Spartacus, there really is nothing else in this movie that links itself to any historical fact whatsoever. That is basically it. Now, the other thing too about it is that I mentioned last week, of course, Battle of the Amazons. Although it was an appalling film, the good thing about it was that it was, I suppose, a bit more historically, not that you'd be historically accurate about Amazons, but it was historically accurate to the Greek, bit more historically accurate anyway, to the Greek stories of Amazons, that they were wild, they were nasty, they were murderers, they were pillagers, they, would just destroy everything in their path. And it mentioned then that a lot of the more modern Amazon movies have changed quite a bit. You just have to think about Wonder Woman, for example. But now, quite often, Amazons are often, of course, played with the idea of feminism, with women's rights, environmental rights, basically making a stand for women. And they're the good people rather than the bad people in movies. And that's exactly really where this movie goes. The big problem, though, I'll have to say, for those of you that were hoping to see some gladiator fighting, there's really very little of it in this movie. Most of it is really about the Amazons themselves. Now, where's this movie go? Okay, well, basically, it starts off in somewhere in Eastern Europe, and Crassus has become the governor of this province. Now, of course, historically that's totally incorrect, because after he defeated Spartacus, of course, Crassus actually went on to become governor of Syria, where he fought and would eventually be killed by the Parthian Empire. But we'll just put that to one side. Anyway, in this, he's off in some eastern province, near Greece or somewhere like that. Now, he comes across a village, and he goes about the normal Roman thing of slaughtering and butchering, people who aren't Roman. And he kills the mother of 2 young girls and takes the 2 girls into slavery. And that is Melanie Guttridge, and, of course, our main star, which is Nicole Hertz, who plays the character of Serena. Now, Serena becomes a dancer, and her sister basically goes into, I suppose, prostitution, you would almost say, and becomes the lover of Crassus. Now, an Amazon is captured one night and brought into the villa, and she helps Serena and one of her new friends escape from the compound, and they go off, of course, to the Amazon camp, and they will now, of course, start their Amazon training. And Serena plays that sort of normal character, or not Serena, the character of Serena, is that normal sort of, like she thinks she knows it all, but she doesn't quite know it yet. She's got to learn how to be an Amazon. She's got to channel her anger. She's far too angry at the Romans and at men in general. But, over time, she will learn and she will become an Amazon. Now, once again, as I said, this movie plays with the more modern idea of Amazons. So they're quite friendly to men, they're friendly, they help the villagers all around them, whether they be male or female, and all they really want to do is fight the evil Roman Empire. Now, Serena then decides that she's going to go back to the Roman city, and she's going to basically kill Crassus. And so she heads off there, and somehow or other, she manages to get in there, and with her friend, they end up being captured. And then, of course, we have to have our big major showdown where she will have to fight Crassus in hand-to-hand combat in the arena. There's so many things that happen in this movie that are just absolutely ludicrous. I mean, how a roaming band of Amazon women on horseback, maybe numbering 10 or 12, are able to breach the entire defences of a Roman legion, I really don't know. But hey, it's all fun. It's all just B-movie fun. So we've got a lot of sword fighting in this, not much blood, to be truthful, but it's good. If you want one of those, Amazon movies set in the ancient world with lots of sword play, then, this is a good one. And with a pretty, I was going to say good cast, but I'll rephrase that, with a very attractive cast, shall we say that. Although I have to admit, was it Melanie Guttridge, was maybe a bit of an odd cast to play one of the slaves, because I really didn't know the breast enhancements had been invented in 51 BC. But according to this movie, it was quite common. But look, it's worth checking out. If you want a bit of fun, a bit of sword play, you want some Amazon women riding around on horseback, this is one to definitely check out. Amazons versus gladiators.
Oh, we're just careening off the track.
This is going to be a long edit.
Oh, God, that's staying in there.
Okay.
The Only Funny to Us podcast with brand new episodes every Monday night at 8 at onlyfunnytous.com.
Now, if you've been listening to any of the previous podcasts that I've done, you will know that I love a good found footage movie, a bit of found footage horror or found footage horror suspense. And, well, this podcast is going to be no different. I've got another one for you. But probably not the best one I've ever seen, but still, it was quite a bit of fun. And it is Alien Abduction from 2014. Now, it's often also referred to as the Morris Family Abduction, or sometimes Alien Abduction, the Morris Family Abduction. So it's got a couple of sort of different titles. But it was directed by Matt Beckerman, and it's actually based on, well, I won't say based on a true story, but it's actually based on a story that Matt himself actually heard while travelling around the United States about a town which had stories that went all the way back to Native Americans who spoke about certain times of the year where people would disappear for absolutely no reason, but it was linked to lights, strange lights in the sky. And he actually thought that, look, this is a great story. And of course, from there, our movie was created. Now, it starts in a very interesting way. We see almost like a garbage chute, you would almost say, some sort of metallic chute open up. And from the point of view perspective, a video camera falls from this chute and plummets to Earth, and we see it obviously plummeting to Earth until it lands and crashes on the ground. And we're given a statement at the start of the movie that this is footage that was recovered by Project Blue Book. Now, if you don't know what Project Blue Book is, I probably should explain it because it's reasonably important to the story. Now, Project Blue Book was an American organisation run by the United States Air Force, started in the 1950s and really ran all the way through until the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now, the organisation was meant to go out and record, collate information about UFOs. Now, not about aliens, but about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Now, a lot of people have actually said that that was really just a cover, and that Project Blue Book was actually more a black ops, if you like, counterintelligence organisation designed to get everybody in the country talking so much about flying saucers that they would identify everything as an alien spacecraft and not as American experimental aircraft that they may have seen being tested. So the information that was being gathered, which would then of course end up with the Soviet Union, would all be misinformation. Well, I don't know. You can take that whichever way you like, but in this case, Project Blue Book are meant to be exactly what they claim to be, studying strange phenomenon based around UFOs. Now, after we get that introduction, we go straight into our found footage. And it starts really with a family, a mum, a dad, and two sons and a daughter who are on a camping holiday, basically driving around for several days, you know, in tents, doing all the, you know, the camping sort of stuff that families do. Now, on the first night when they're out, they film strange lights in the sky. And, you know, it's all a bit of fun. They get it recorded. It's a bit freaky, but they don't really think much more about it. But then the next day, they notice that their GPS doesn't work properly anymore. And then weird stuff starts to happen, like massive flocks of birds just die and come crashing to the ground for absolutely no reason. They get themselves lost at this stage and are running low on fuel, and find themselves stopped by tons of parked and abandoned cars in front of a tunnel, a road tunnel. And they get out of the car, the father and son, and actually then go to investigate what's going on in the tunnel. They can't find any people, there's nobody about, and all these cars are just totally abandoned. They're not parked like people have all met there to go somewhere. The doors are open, the lights are on, there's stuff all over the ground, there's luggage, there's clothes. This is really very strange. And then they start to see movement at the other end of the tunnel. As they start to approach, the silhouettes don't appear to be human, and they get closer and closer and closer until suddenly the father is grabbed and the son is told, make a run for it, go. So he does. He runs back to the family. They realise that the father's been taken. That's it. They make a run for it in the car. They then, as trying to escape, running low on fuel, of course, the car won't go any further, they keep going on foot, where they find themselves in a cabin, in the woods, with, the very typical sort of hillbilly redneck who lives there with his dog and his shotgun. And he tells them about the fact that weird things have been known to happen in these Yar Hills, and they clearly are. Now, obviously, they're all emotionally totally distressed by the fact that they've lost their father, and, of course, the mother has lost her husband. But her job now, of course, is to keep her children alive from whatever is going around grabbing people. And I won't go into the movie much more, because from this point on, it's a question of survival. Can they make it to the major town and survive, or are they going to be taken or killed by whatever these beings are which are roaming around the forest? One thing I did like about it is that we don't really get to see the aliens, if you like. They're generally almost shadows that we see moving, or they're in the distance, so we can't fully really make them out. We often hear them, but we don't really see them properly. And I think that was a much cheaper way to do it, but it actually works really well. But in saying that, this movie really isn't scary. For something which is meant to hold you, at the edge of your seat with suspense, it doesn't really pull it off. Look, but in saying that, maybe for an 8-year-old watching this, they would be freaked out to high heaven. But I think for an adult watching this, or an older teenager, they're not really going to be scared. But it's still a bit of fun, and it's found footage, so hey, it's great fun. So why not check it out? Alien Abduction, or The Morris Family Abduction. If you like found footage, here's another one to add to your collection. Now it's time to reveal the secret of the introduction to this podcast. Now, the song you heard was by a band called Skyhooks from Australia with the song Horror Movie. And why it's so important is because the film I'm about to talk about, Skyhooks took their name from this particular movie. They named themselves after this film. Now, it is, of course, a true classic, Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Now, even if you're not really into cult movies, I'm sure you will have seen this movie. It always appears, I remember when I was a child, on The Late Show, or The Late Late Show, or the extremely late show, I can't believe I'm still awake at 4 a.m. show. So a lot of people will have seen this, even if they're not really big into old black and white sci-fi. Now, it's from 1956, directed by Fred Sears, stars Hugh Marlowe, and Joan Taylor. Now, Hugh Marlowe, I should say. Now, of course, he also starred in another one of my real absolute cult favourites, which was Creature from the Black Lagoon. So, if you've seen if you've seen that movie, you'll recognise him. Now, this movie is often being described as Independence Day in black and white, made 40 years earlier. And in a sense, that's not that far off the truth. Now, the other amazing thing about this movie too is that the special effects were all done by Ray Harryhausen. Now, Ray Harryhausen was very, very famous for stop motion. Look, I'm not going to go into stop motion. Well, I suppose I should to really explain it. It's where if you've got a monster or a building or something like that, it's made as a model, and you slowly move little bits, taking frame by frame by frame to create an image. Now, if you've ever watched Wallace and Gromit, for argument's sake, then you'll know exactly the end result of stop motion. And Ray Harryhausen, of course, did all the stop motion special effects in this movie, and he's treated like, is treated like a god in Hollywood. In fact, he even won an Oscar for special effects for the movie The 7 Voyages of Sinbad. So it's a big deal, and one of the reasons why I think makes this movie so good. Now, the reason why skyhooks, how does skyhooks have anything to do with Earth versus the flying saucers? Well, this movie starts with a rocket, basically the US military launching rockets which are putting satellites into the sky. And the actual launch site is called Project Skyhook. So there's your connection. It's also interesting too that in the video clip to Horror Movie, it's actually full of images taken from this movie. But I'm digressing way too much. Let me tell you about the movie. Now, it starts off with launching these rockets, and unfortunately, every time they put a satellite up into the sky, it plummets down to Earth. They don't stay up there very long. And the US military and the scientists are starting to suspect that there's something a bit strange here. Why are they continually crashing? Well, our two heroes, or hero and heroine, who are running Project Skyhook, have just got married. So, that's all very nice. But they're going to launch the next rocket with the next satellite with a video camera on board to try to see what's going on, and they're going to spend their honeymoon together locked away in a bunker monitoring all the video imagery. Well, unfortunately, after the rocket is launched, the satellite comes tumbling back to Earth, and we're in the poo once again. And also, while driving to Project Skyhook, they get buzzed by a UFO, and they record the sound of the UFO, and this will become very important as the movie progresses. Well, anyway, while they're locked away in their bunker, the Project Skyhook gets attacked by a flying saucer and by aliens. And because they're now locked away in the bunker and they can't get out, as the tape recorder starts to lose battery power, they realise that the sound they've recorded is actually a message from the aliens, who are wanting to organise a meeting between humans and themselves. But of course, we all know what's going to happen in this meeting. It's all going to go horribly wrong, and there's going to be a big battle, of course, when they land. And then, of course, the aliens are going to demand that they're going to take over the planet and of course the humans have got to find a way to stop them. It's pretty normal stuff. But it's really, really fun. This movie, it doesn't lose pace, to be honest, at all for something that was made in 1956. It really does move along quite well. The special effects by Ray Harryhausen are absolutely fantastic, although we still do have some of the standard stuff of people running in front of a moving image to make it look as if they're running, and of course they never quite look right. But I really recommend you go and see this one, Earth versus the Flying Saucers. As I said, it's Independence Day, made 40 years before Independence Day. It's great fun. The story never slows down. It's classic humans versus aliens to see who will actually control the Earth. And I think we all know what's actually going to happen in the end, but I won't give that away. You've got to check this one out. One of my favourite black and white sci-fi movies of all time. Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Do yourself a favour. Now, one thing we haven't had this podcast, so far anyway, is a good creature feature. Yes, a bit of a monster movie. So let's make up for that now. And our next little offering is called Kraken, Tentacles of the Deep. Oh, what a great title. But there's a slight problem with the title, which I'll get to in a second. Now, it's from 2006 and stars Charlie O'Connell and Victoria Pratt. Now, Charlie O'Connell, we've mentioned a couple of his movies before, such as Two-Headed Shark Attack. And Victoria Pratt, I'm sure you will be familiar with Victoria Pratt if you have seen TV shows such as Xena. She's been in just Mutant X. She's been in an absolute ton of TV. And I have to admit, one of my favourite Canadian actresses. I think she's absolutely brilliant. But look, the slight problem with this movie is it's called Kraken, and our monster, our creature in this is not actually a kraken, because of course a kraken is a mythical creature from what Celtic sort of Scandinavian folklore. This is actually a giant squid. It's quite different. And of course, giant squids are real animals. But it's not a kraken. But anyway, who cares? It's a B movie. I won't get too hung up on that. So, look, our movie starts in the past where a young boy playing the Charlie O'Connell character is on a boating trip with his parents, and the boat is attacked and his parents are killed by this giant squid. And from that scene we then move to the present, where Charlie O'Connell is now, of course, all grown up, and beefcake man. And we then get introduced to Victoria Pratt and all our other characters. Now, she plays a university professor / sort of treasure hunter who has a number of university students with her on a treasure hunt, trying to find a thing called the Trojan Death Mask, which is, in the water somewhere from a sunken ship, and they're trying to recover it. Now, at the same time, there is an evil group, almost mafia-style gentleman, who is also a treasure hunter, and he is after the death mask at the same time. Now, our group of archaeologists, university people and so forth, end up meeting up with Charlie O'Connell, and they go into partnership to try to find this death mask. But, of course, Charlie O'Connell's got maybe some different ideas. He wants to kill a giant squid. He wants revenge, for his parents. Now, when they're out on the boat and they actually find this mast, they are attacked by the giant squid, who kills the captain of their boat. But of course, that's not a problem because, of course, Charlie O'Connell is there to save the day. Now, he agrees then to repair the boat after the attack. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I just coughed there. He agrees to help repair the boat after the attack, but the evil mafia sort of person called Maxwell then comes along and destroys their boat. But it doesn't matter because, of course, Charlie O'Connell will spend his life savings to buy another boat, and then they go into partnership, unbelievably, with the mafia person to then go out and try to kill the giant squid, but it all goes horribly wrong. They get betrayed, and of course, all the way through our movie, members of the cast are slowly being killed by this giant squid. It's great fun. It really is great fun. There's a high bikini quota in this movie, so for all the pervs like me, that's really kind of cool. And Victoria Pratt spends a large proportion of this movie in a bikini as well, so I, 2 thumbs up for that as well. It does get pretty cheesy. I mean, realistically, if you just seen students that you were responsible for and they were your friends, killed by a giant squid, I don't know that if 5 minutes later the first thing you'd be thinking about is making out with your new friend, but it doesn't seem to worry the cast in this movie. But then again, it's B cinema. That's the way, it works. But look, this really, really, really is fun. Gotta love a big creature feature movie. This lives up to it. We've got a giant squid, we've got women in bikinis, we've got a beefcake man running around in a singlet, we've got our bad people trying to stop them, we've got people being eaten left, right and centre by the squid. It's absolutely perfect. You couldn't ask for much more. So this is definitely one, where you pour yourself a drink, you put your feet up and just escape from life for an hour and a half.
I worked in the garden center, and a lady came in, and we had the flowers or the plants, and she asked me how much the chlamydias were.
The Only Funny to Us podcast, available now at onlyfunnytous.com.
Well, I think it's time for our Scream Queen of the Week. Got to find a better intro than that. Anyway. Our Scream Queen for podcast number 6 is Sophie Monk from Australia. And Sophie is an actress where you have to say to yourself, how does she have time to sleep? Because she is so busy doing so many different things. Now, she was born in 1979 in London, but then moved with her family to Queensland, Australia at the age of 2. So she's an Aussie. She's a true blue Aussie, there's no doubt about that. She's a vegan, which, I find pretty cool. And some of the things that she's done, she really started her celebrity career, I suppose, if you like, back in 1999, where she was picked to be part of an all-girl band called Bardot in the Australian TV reality show Pop Stars. And after putting out a couple of albums, she then went on and put out a solo album. None of them were truly actually ever really very successful. As with her movies, because her movies are generally all B-grade. They're either B-grade horror or they're B-grade comedy, but they're generally always B-grade. But then again, I've seen her interviewed about this on numerous occasions, and she plays it up to the camera. There is absolutely no doubt that she takes the piss out of herself all the time and never really takes her concept of celebrity really very seriously at all. She's actually a very nice switched on woman. But some of the other things that she's done, I mean, she's on radio in Australia. She has a regular radio show. She's also been a judge on Australia's Got Talent. I mean, whether it's television, whether it's movies, whether it's music, whether it's radio, whether it's reality TV, this woman just never stays still. So anyway, she is our Scream Queen of podcast number 6. So, of course, we need to talk about one of her films. And I've got a great little horror slasher movie that she was a star of called The Hills Run Red. And this is an absolute beaut. Now, from 2009, directed by David Parker, this movie is, as I said, called The Hills Run Red, but it's actually about a movie called The Hills Run Red, which I will explain how that all works. Now, it stars William Sadler, Janet Montgomery, and our two main stars, of course, our Scream Queen, Sophie Monk, who I have to admit isn't really a Scream Queen in this. She's pretty nasty. And also Ted Heidelbrink. Now, he plays the character of Tyler, and Sophie Monk plays the character of Alexa. Now, where this begins is that our character Tyler is a movie buff, and he is obsessed with an old movie, which is maybe 20 years old, something like that, called The Hills Run Red. And the reason why he is obsessed with it is because it's supposed to be the scariest horror movie ever made in history. But there is not a copy of the movie available. It has just vanished. Nobody has any copies. The original has disappeared, so nobody can see it. But, of course, everybody knows that it's the scariest movie ever. So he wants to find out more about it. Now, he finds out that the man who made it has disappeared, but his daughter, Alexa, of course, played by Sophie Monk, is alive, and he tracks her down. Now, she turns out to be basically a drug addict and stripper, but he manages to convince her to come away with his friends and to try to locate the area where the movie was actually filmed, and who knows, maybe they can find out more about this actual film. So they all head off to see what they can find out in the woods, and they are attacked by, I suppose, these sort of, redneck hillbillies who try to do very nasty things to them. But then out of the darkness comes this person who we will know as Babyface, who was one of the characters in the movie, The Hills Run Red. And he kills the rednecks and saves them, but then, of course, disappears. So this is getting sort of pretty freaky, and I'll tell you what, it's getting pretty violent and bloody as well. But don't worry, there's lots more violence and a ton more blood to come yet. Now, they find then, as they keep wandering, a house in the middle of the forest, and they realise that this is where the film was actually made. But it then goes very, very wrong, because the writer director of this movie, Alexa's father, suddenly turns up, and now they're in a situation where they're being held captives by him, and they find out that there's a reason why this movie is so scary, and that's because the murders and the violence and the blood that is in the movie is real. And that's the reason why. We also find out that Alexa was alive when they actually made the movie and witnessed the movie. And we also then start to get into all sorts of weird, horrible areas, such as incest and so forth, and insanity, which of course you could imagine being brought up in an environment, like this. And the story then becomes a question of survival for our travelling movie buffs. But it's more than just that, because we will have a portrayal within the group. And you have to sort of work out whose side everybody is actually on as they're trapped in this farm and trying to escape. And as I said, because it is a horror slasher, it gets really bloody and really, really nasty. So you're going to need a bit of a strong stomach if you go to watch it. The other amazing thing too is if you are a fan of our Scream Queen, Sophie Monk, she gets very, very, very nude in this movie in several scenes. So there's big perv factor going on in this as well. But it is good. I mean, it really actually is good. It does keep you guessing throughout the film. I suppose it follows a straight line, if you like, until they're actually at the farmhouse where this movie, The Hills Run Red, was actually filmed. And we then start to find out a lot more about the history of making the movie. We find out the history of the relationship between Alexa and her father. We start to find out about this character, Babyface, almost sort of a Jason-esque type character. And it really does hold you through the whole hour and a half. So, look, if you like a bit of blood in your horror movies and you like some suspense, definitely, this is a good one. Very much, I suppose, on the lines of, Jason and those sorts of movies, but it's got a little bit more to offer than just that. As I said, the background story in this will start to take you in all sorts of different directions. Definitely, it's one to check out. The Hills Run Red. But as I said, be careful what you eat beforehand, because it is a slasher movie and it is pretty gory, but it's still great fun. Well, that's our 6 movies for podcast number 6. Yes, 6 in 6. Maybe there's something profound about that. I don't know. Really not too sure. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry, some of the movies I talked about them a little bit too quickly. I really could have gone into a lot more depth, especially like Earth versus the Flying Saucers. I really could have gone into a lot more depth on that. Truth is, I've got a splitting headache, and I just didn't. That's about the best I can do for this podcast. Promise I'll be a bit better for podcast number 7. So look, as always, to sum up, thank yous. Thank you, of course, to Only Funny to Us podcast. Great friends, great guys, and been very supportive. And of course, they also do a fantastic show. So please, of course, check them out on Twitter. It is OFTU Podcast. If you go there, of course, you can find all the links to their shows. And I was also on their last show. So if you check out their very last podcast, you'll be able to hear myself helping them eat some Australian snacks, because, of course, they are American, and seeing, or I should say hearing their reactions to eating Vegemite for the first time, it's worth it just for that. So thank you guys, of course, at Only Funny to Us. Thank you, of course, to Ramona at Sports Gal Pal, that's GALPAL. Great friend, always been a great support. So please check out her podcast as well. Simply go to Twitter, Sports Galpal, as I said, to find all the links. And as always, have to thank the lovely, the charming, the wonderful Alana Evans for allowing me to use her music. Didn't use it for the intro this time, but of course there was a special reason for that. But it's the end of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for Alana. So I hope you'll join me again for podcast number 7 next week. I hopefully won't have a shocking headache through that one, and I'll go through a little bit more detail when I'm talking about the movies. But I still hope you enjoyed. So, as always, thank you, and I'll be back again next week.
You're always smiling when I see you. It doesn't matter